Sign the release and you get your cut. The whisper slid across the table and into my ear like something alive. Whoa, greasy, almost tender. It blended with the constant hum of the air conditioner, that dead, mechanical breathing every corporate room seems to have. The kind that makes time feel suspended, like nothing bad or good can happen here. Just paperwork, just signatures, just money changing hands. $180,000, that number pulsed between us, invisible but loud. I didn't look at him when he said it. I kept my eyes on the glossy conference table, on the faint ring left by someone else's coffee mug, on the neat little stack of documents aligned perfectly in front of me. Calm was a choice. I chose it deliberately. The title company conference room was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, framed stock photos of smiling couples holding keys, a flat-screen monitor mounted a little too high. On the screen glowed bright green pixels, wire transfer confirmations, escrow balances, sterile proof that this was all very real, very final. Dylan sat across from me in a cheap navy suit that didn't quite fit. The fabric clung darkly under his arms. He kept wiping his forehead with the back of his hand, smearing sweat instead of removing it. His breath carried the sour edge of stale coffee and nerves. He leaned forward too much, elbows on the table, like a man trying to physically close distance before someone could change their mind. Beside us, Brenda, the escrow officer, typed quietly on her keyboard. Professional, neutral. She had that practiced calm of someone who believes paperwork is protection, that rules will hold as long as everyone follows them. She hadn't realized yet that rules were about to be used like weapons. Dylan's knee bounced under the table. His eyes never left my hands. "All you have to do," he said, softer now, coaxing, "is sign the release. Clean. Easy. You walk out with your share. Everybody's happy. Everybody." The word almost made me smile. I picked up the pen. It felt heavier than it should have. Solid. Cold. Like holding a loaded gun and knowing exactly where it was pointed. I signed the mortgage documents first. Low. Deliberate. Each letter of my name precise, practiced. This was the part that created the debt, the obligation, the legal weight of the transaction. Brenda nodded as I slid the papers back to her, already scanning them for completeness. Dylan practically vibrated. His fingers drummed against the table, faster now, greed leaking through the cracks of his composure. He smiled wide and sharp, like this was already over. "There you go," he said, unable to help himself. "Smart choice." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. Slightly bent at the corners. It landed on the table with a dull, final thud that cut through the hum of the AC. Dylan frowned. Just for a second. "What's that?" he asked. Brenda looked up, her professional mask flickering. "Ma'am, is that part of the—" "Yes," I said, finally meeting Dylan's eyes. "It is." I slid the folder across the table. Not to him, but to her. Dylan laughed, a short, confused sound. "Susan, come on. We don't need—" Brenda opened the folder. Her eyes moved left to right across the first page, then back again. The color drained from her face faster than a tide going out, leaving her skin pale and tight. Her fingers stiffened, gripping the paper as if it might slip away. The room changed, the air felt heavier, thicker, like the moment just before a storm breaks. "This," Brenda said slowly, carefully, "is a court order." Dylan stopped breathing. The word sat there, sharp and absolute. Court order freezing the account. Effective immediately. No disbursements. No releases. No exceptions. His mouth opened, then closed again. His knee stopped bouncing. Sweat rolled down his temple, unchecked now. "That's not—" he started, then faltered. "That's not possible." Brenda didn't look at him. She was already flipping to the next page, confirming seals, dates, signatures. Each turn of paper sounded loud in the silence, like the slow ratcheting of a mechanism locking into place. It felt like standing beneath a guillotine blade you suddenly realized had been there the whole time. Suspended. Waiting. I folded my hands in front of me. Steady. Controlled. "You wanted me to sign," I said quietly. "I did." Dylan stared at me, panic finally breaking through the grease and bravado. You can't do this." I met his gaze and held it. And I was the one holding the rope. No one spoke after that. There was nothing left to negotiate. Brenda excused herself to make a call. As Dylan sat frozen in his chair, the hum of the air conditioner filled the space again. Same sound. Different meaning. "You understand why I was doing this? You have to go back 48 hours. You have to understand the dinner." Dylan called it a family celebration. I called it a summons. The table was set like a magazine spread. Linen napkins folded just so. Real candles instead of the cheap battery ones. Rosemary roasted into the chicken until the whole house smelled like effort. Expensive red wine breathed in wide bowled glasses. The kind people buy to look successful, not to drink. Performing wealth. Performing unity. Dylan sat at the head of the table, of course. Broad shoulders squared, carving knife placed in front of him like a symbol instead of a tool. Patriarch by posture alone. My mother, Mary, sat 2 seats down, hands trembling as she lifted her glass, eyes darting every time someone spoke too loudly. She smiled too often, too fast. The smile of someone bracing for impact. Anthony was already unraveling. He couldn't sit still. His leg bounced hard enough to rattle the table. He checked his phone, flipped it face down, then picked it up again 10 seconds later like it might bite him if he ignored it too long. His pupils were too wide. His jaw worked constantly, grinding on nothing. I'd seen those tells before. On patients detoxing in hospital rooms who swore they were fine. We ate in forced silence for a while. Dylan asked about my work without listening to the answer. Mary commented on the chicken like it mattered. Anthony didn't touch his plate. Finally he cracked. "I need help," he blurted, voice sharp and thin. "Dad, I screwed up." Dylan didn't look surprised. He didn't look anything at all. He kept carving, slow and methodical. "How much?" Dylan asked. Anthony swallowed. 55,000. The number hit the table like a dropped glass. Mary gasped softly, hand flying to her mouth. "It's gone," Anthony rushed on. "All of it." "Gone how?" asked. "Crypto. Gambling. Leverage trades he didn't understand. Chasing losses with borrowed money like he could outsmart probability if he just tried hard enough." He talked fast, sweating now, words tumbling over each other. It wasn't just bad luck, it was obsession, and it wasn't his money. "I took it from work," he said finally, barely audible. "Just for a little while. I was going to put it back." Silence. "You stole it," I said. It wasn't a question. Anthony flinched like I'd struck him. "There's an audit Monday," he whispered. "If they find it, I'm done. 5 years. Maybe more." Mary started crying. Quiet, desperate sobs into her napkin. Dylan finally set the knife down and turned to me. The look in his eyes made my stomach turn. It was the look a butcher gives a cow. Not angry, not emotional. Just assessing. Calculating yield. "There is a solution," he said calmly. "But we need you." Of course, that he laid it out like a business pitch. My grandmother's house, technically still in a family trust, technically tied to my future inheritance, could be leveraged for a hard money loan. Yes, no questions. $180,000. More than enough to cover Anthony's theft, fees, and breathing room. Predatory terms. Dylan didn't hide them. 0.12% interest. 30 days to make the first payment. Miss it and the lender forecloses. No grace period. No mercy. "You'd be gambling your retirement," I said to my mother. She didn't answer. "You'd be gambling my inheritance," I said to Dylan. He smiled. "It's just money." I pushed my chair back. "I'm not letting you torch my inheritance to keep him out of prison. Maybe a few years in a cell will teach him how to count." Anthony exploded. "Listen to you," he snarled, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You think you're better than me? You're a glorified maid, Susan. You wipe asses and change bedpans. You exist to serve people like me." The words were meant to hurt. They did, but not the way he wanted. They clarified things. Stripped away the last illusion of family respect. Dylan watched, silent. Waiting. Then he stood and walked to the sideboard, picked up his phone, turned the screen toward me. A photoed me in uniform. Medication disposal room. The angle wrong. Cropped just enough to look like I was pocketing a vial instead of dropping it into the bin. Wednesday afternoon, Dylan said softly. To the nursing board, this looks like diversion. Theft of narcotics. My chest went cold. I make an anonymous tip, he continued. You're suspended immediately. 6 months, maybe a year. No pay. By the time they clear you, if they clear you, you're already finished. You'll always be the nurse who stole drugs. He'd planned this. Days of it. Watching me. Waiting. Mary reached for my hand, crying openly now. Please, Susan. Just sign the papers. Don't let them ruin you. He's your brother. We have to help him. I looked at her. Really looked. And the last thin thread connecting me to these people snapped. Mary wasn't a victim. She was complicit. Willing to sacrifice me to save him. Family loyalty wasn't a bond here. It was a weapon. And I finally understood exactly who they thought I was. I sat back down. Slowly. Deliberately I smoothed the napkin on my lap, pressing out wrinkles that didn't matter. I let my shoulders drop, exhaling a long, shaky breath. I even let my hands tremble a little before folding them together. The performance of a defeated woman, carefully rehearsed in real time. They were all watching me. Mary leaned forward, hope flickering across her face. Anthony stared, suspicious but eager. Dylan's eyes stayed locked on mine, sharp, waiting for resistance to break. I can't lose my license, I said quietly. You win. The words tasted like rust. Dylan relaxed instantly. Not much, just a fraction, but I saw it. The subtle lean back in his chair. The unclenching of his jaw. Predators always feel it when the trap closes. They mistake compliance for surrender. Good, he said. I knew you'd come around. But, I added, lifting one finger, I want something out of it. Anthony scoffed. Of course you do. 10,000, I said. Cash. From the loan. The room shifted. Mary looked confused. Anthony looked offended. Dylan looked interested. For what? Dylan asked. For the risk, I said evenly. For signing my future away. For losing sleep. For being the one whose name is tied to this when it all goes bad. Anthony laughed, sharp and cruel. Wow. The saintly nurse is a hustler after all. Shrugged. Everyone has a price. You taught me that tonight. That did it. Greed made sense to Dylan. It always had. If I had refused on moral grounds, he would have worried. Morality was unpredictable. But greed was familiar, quantifiable, containable. He nodded slowly. 10,000 is reasonable. Just like that. They thought they'd bought me. Anthony's posture changed completely. The tension drained from him, replaced by relief so intense it bordered on giddiness. He started talking again, too much now, about how this was all going to work, how once the money came through, everything would be fine. Mary kept thanking me through tears, squeezing my hand like I'd just saved the family. I let her. Dylan outlined the next steps with the confidence of a man who believed the game was already over. Title company. Hard money lender. Friday at noon. He spoke in certainties, not possibilities. Just sign where they tell you, he said. Then we're done. He nodded. Quiet. Agreeable. Inside, something cold and solid was settling into place. I stood to leave and gathered my coat. I didn't look at my mother. I couldn't. Not without breaking the performance. Mary reached for me anyway, fingers brushing my sleeve, but I stepped back before she could hold on. Anthony didn't notice. He was already texting someone, probably celebrating his escape. Dylan walked me to the door. You did the right thing, he said, lowering his voice. Family takes care of family. I smiled faintly. Sure. Outside, the night air bit through my clothes, sharp and clean. I didn't feel the chill. I felt the cold, hard weight of the plan forming in my gut. Every step to my car clicked into place like a sequence I'd been waiting to run. They thought they had bought me. They didn't know they had just sold themselves. I didn't spend the next 48 hours crying. I spent them with a lawyer. His name was Thomas. He was a bulldog of an attorney. Gray at the temples, sleeves rolled up, eyes that didn't blink when you said words like fraud and felony. He specialized in estate abuse cases, the kind where family loyalty gets used as cover for long-term theft. I had found him years ago. Not hired, just researched. Saved. Filed away for a day I hoped would never come but somehow always knew would. Back then I didn't have proof. I had instincts, patterns. The quiet certainty that something about Dylan's control over my grandmother's house didn't add up. Now I had evidence point two pieces of it. Both nuclear. The first was a DNA test. Clean. Certified. Absolute. Dylan was not my biological father. Not even close. The second was a recording. My mother's voice, thin and shaking, admitting exactly how the fraud had been done. Thomas listened without interrupting. When the recording ended, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly through his nose. He claimed paternity to bypass probate scrutiny, I said. Didn't he? Thomas nodded. That's exactly what he did. 20 years ago, when my grandmother's health had started to fail, Dylan had inserted himself as legal guardian. Claimed paternity. He didn't have to get his name on the deed without triggering deeper court oversight. No DNA test. No challenge. Just paperwork and a cooperative spouse, and the recording. My mother said it plainly. He told me if I didn't list him as the father, the state would take the house. Fear dressed up as necessity. A lie used to justify another lie. Perjury. Constructive fraud. Estate manipulation. Thomas tapped his pen once against his desk. You don't just want to stop the loan, he said. You want to nuke the site from orbit. Yes, I said. But I want the debt to stick. That got his full attention that I laid it out. I didn't want a clean interruption. I wanted consequences that couldn't be undone with apologies or settlements. I wanted something slow, crushing, educational. I want the cash to freeze, I said. But the obligation to survive. Thomas smiled then. Not kindly. Appreciatively. We file a lease pendens, he said. Notice of pending legal action. Clouds the title. Timing, he explained, was everything. We'd file it Friday morning, right when the courthouse opened. The lender would already be moving. They'd run a title search days earlier, clean. Proved. The wire would go out based on that stale certainty. The money would land in the escrow account. And then Brenda, the escrow officer, would do her final check. She would see the lease pendens. And by law, she would have no choice. Freeze everything. The lender couldn't release funds on a clouded title. Not legally. Not without assuming massive liability. The cash would sit there, untouched, locked in procedural purgatory while the legal fight ground forward. But the mortgage note, that would be signed, executed, binding. Dylan would owe $180,000 at 12% interest. Payments ticking. Penalties accruing. No access to the money meant to save him. IT wasn't just a trap, IT was a vice. Thomas drafted the paperwork with ruthless efficiency. Before I left, he slid one final document across the desk. Affidavit, he said. You signed this stating your cooperation was under duress. Extortion. Threats to your professional license. It shields you. I signed without hesitation. The moment the pen left the page, something inside me shifted. The constant tension I'd lived with for years, waiting for the next demand, the next manipulation, loosened its grip. I felt lighter than I had in a long time, and in the parking lot my phone buzzed. Anthony. Another message. Another attempt to control the narrative. I deleted it without reading. For the first time I wasn't reacting. I was executing. He thought he was the predator. He had no idea he was already the prey. It looked like a negotiation. But it felt like an execution. The title company conference room was colder than I remembered. The air conditioning was set too low, humming steadily, indifferent. Beige walls. Frosted glass. A long table polished to the point of sterility. This was where things ended, cleanly and without witnesses. Anthony couldn't sit still. His leg bounced so hard the table shivered. He checked his watch, then his phone, then the watch again, like time itself was holding its breath. When the confirmation hit the screen, $180,000 received into escrow, he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Oh, thank God," he whispered. Dylan leaned back, smug satisfaction settling into his posture. He clasped his hands like a man at the end of a sermon, convinced the moral arc had bent his way. I felt nothing in the air. When a patient codes, the family screams. They panic. They beg. But the doctors, we get quieter. Voices drop. Movements slow. Emotion gets stripped away until only process remains. That's where I was. Not a scared daughter. Not a threatened sister, a clinician. Brenda slid the documents toward me. "We'll need signatures on the note and the deed of trust." I picked up the pen. Mortgage note first. The debt became real, binding, alive. Then the deed of trust. The house, my grandmother's house, leveraged against Anthony's addiction and Dylan's greed. Dylan watched the ink like it was oxygen. "See," he said to Anthony, grinning. "I told you she'd come through." I set the pen down carefully. "You have to let the poison enter the bloodstream before you can isolate the limb." Brenda pulled the final document forward. Authorization to release funds. Anthony was already spending it in his head. I could see it. His shoulders loosening. His eyes unfocusing as relief flooded in. My mother leaned forward, hands clasped tight. "Please," she said. "Just finish it." I hesitated. "Just enough." "Mom," I asked softly, "are you sure?" She nodded frantically. "Yes, please." I reached into my bag and slid a manila folder across the table. Not routing numbers. Not authorization paper. Brenda opened it. "This is a court filing alleging constructive fraud and falsified guardianship," I said evenly. "There's a lease pendens attached. The escrow is frozen." Silence detonated. "I can't release the funds," Brenda said immediately, pushing back from the table. "I legally can't." Anthony shot to his feet. "Just push the button." "If I move that money," she snapped, "I lose my license." Dylan's face drained of color. He stood abruptly, chair screeching back. "No," he said. "No, no, no." The trap closed. The $180,000 sat locked. The debt was active. 12% interest. Payments ticking. No access to $1 of it. Anthony screamed. "Ugh, animal." Dylan lunged across the table. Security moved fast. Hands on shoulders, bodies colliding. He went down hard, fury useless against procedure, and my mother stared, frozen. For the first time that night, fear finally reached her eyes. I stood. "You wanted the loan, Dylan," I said calmly. "Enjoy the payments." No shouting. No tears. Just a clean exit. They had tried to weaponize the house. Now they were buried under it. The collapse was immediate. By Monday morning, the auditors were no longer asking questions. They were handcuffing Anthony at his desk. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. The charges stacked fast, clinical and unforgiving. Bail was set higher than Dylan could even pretend to afford. The hard money lender moved next. Lawsuit filed. Liens enforced. Trucks seized from job sites mid-morning. Equipment repossessed while crews watched in stunned silence. Within weeks, Dylan's contracting business folded completely. No cash flow, no credit, no leverage left to bluff with. 3 months later, a judge voided Dylan's claim entirely. 20 years of fraud erased with a single ruling. The house returned to its rightful owner. I sold it. Not out of bitterness, but intention. I paid off my own debts quietly. Then I did what my grandmother would have wanted. I funded a nursing scholarship in her name. 1 student a year. No fanfare. No press. Just a clean line from exploitation to opportunity. Trauma didn't get the last word. Purpose did. My mother texted me the week the eviction notice arrived. "They're evicting us." Pleased. I stared at the screen longer than I expected to. Thought of the dinner table. Her trembling hands. Her silence when I was threatened. She had made her choice. over and over again. Complicity has consequences. In medicine we call dead, spreading tissue gangrene. The cure isn't hope. It's amputation. Toxic family works the same way. You don't heal what's killing you. You remove it. I blocked her number. Then I stepped outside. The sunlight hit my face, warm, honest, unforgiving. I stood there for a moment, breathing it in. Exhausted, but finally free.